Obsessed with finding the answer, I began studying every moment in recorded history where masses of people devolved into a state of self-destruction. Down that rabbit hole was where I discovered the work of G. Edward Griffin.
Gentlemen, again let me say welcome to our home.
Since the 1960s, Mr. Griffin has been warning the world of the communist plot to overtake America. Yes, I know, communism.
I'm well aware that whether you're here in person or through the medium of motion picture, that for most of you, it's not easy to fit meetings of this kind into your schedules. But the fact that you are here indicates that you do have an interest in the subject. So in order not to waste any of your time, let's dispense with the usual preliminaries and get right down to the business at hand. We're going to examine in quite a bit of detail the communist theory and practice of revolution, particularly as applied to the United States. Now, this will not be something dreamed up out of thin air. This will be the strategy as taught by them and advocated by them in their own manuals, in their textbooks, and in their schools. The new program of the Communist Party on this subject has this to say. The term socialism describes but the first stage of a new society that in its full development is called communism. Socialism is a transitional stage. Now, the People's World, the official West Coast newspaper of the Communist Party, ran this rather interesting editorial. What is needed now is an effort that begins to approximate the magnitude of the problem. As a minimum, such a program should demand massive emergency action by the federal government.
Interesting how they all marched in perfect lockstep while chanting the same slogans.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity.
Here we are now with an economy in crisis, but with an incredible opportunity.
It's certainly a major crisis, but it also offers us a unique opportunity.
Unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset.
The great opportunity for reset.
Opportunity for us to reset.
For a reset.
For community as you here in this room.
We recognize that government is absolutely necessary for an orderly society. But following the dictum that government, like fire, is both beneficial and dangerous, we believe in the concept of limited government. And we believe that the constitutional republic created by our founding fathers is the best form of limited government that has yet been devised by man. A republic is a limited democracy. It's a form of government based upon the principle of limited majority rule. Limited so that the minority, even a minority of one, can be protected against the whims and passions of the majority. Now, democracy is a form of government based upon the principle of majority rule. It's easy to understand, easy to sell to the masses, and I might add, deadly.
The fathers of philosophy, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, were all staunch critics of democracy. History's greatest minds all observed that even a well-intended democracy can breed deception, division, and ultimately total control by the state.
And how do you protect the minority from the majority? You write down a set of rules on a piece of paper. You say, this we can do, that we cannot. At the top of the paper, you write the word Constitution. And then everyone agrees to follow the rules no matter what the temptation. And when you're finished, you've created a constitutional republic.
It was Thomas Jefferson who said, "The republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind."
Now, we hear a lot of talk today about right-wingers, left-wingers, extremists, and moderates. The political spectrum concept, if it has any meaning at all, is a measurement scale showing all the variations in government. Now, the extremists at the zero end would be those who advocate no government at all, the anarchists. The extremists at the other end would be those who advocate total government. And who are they? Well, the communists, of course, but also the Nazis, the fascists. No matter what they may call themselves, if they advocate total government control over the people, they are all, by definition, totalitarians. the debate is not between conservatives and liberals. It goes back in history long before those words were ever invented. The opposing points of view properly are identified as individualism versus collectivism. The individualist believes that the rights of the individual must not be obliterated by the desires of the collective or the group. The collectivist, on the other hand, believes that the group is more important than the single person within it, and that the individual must be sacrificed if necessary for the greater good of the greater number. The individualists believe that every man has a personal and direct responsibility to provide first for himself, next for his family, and then for those outside his family who may be in need. The collectivist, on the other hand, declares that the individual is not personally responsible for charity, for raising his own children, providing for his aging parents, or even providing for himself, for that matter. This is a group function of the state, of government itself.
Everything we talk about, socialism, communism, globalism, and Nazism, guess what? It's all collective society.
Collectivism on an international level is essentially known as globalism, which is often promoted as a framework for unity and sustainability. Under the guise of philanthropy, the leaders of the globalist movement leverage every possible crisis to advance their plan to replace national sovereignty with a one-world government.
We are confronted with so many crises simultaneously. What does it need to master the future?
In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."
The founding fathers were racist, misogynist,
fascist political party,
radicals on the far right,
anti-Semitic,
xenophobic,
transphobic,
Uncle Tom's
white supremacist,
domestic terrorist,
neo-Nazi organizer,
Nazis.
You are an anti-vaxxer.
Anti-vaxxers.
Racist. Name calling is their number one bullying tactic, and they apply it unremittingly to anyone who questions their dogma or says something they find unacceptable or offensive.
You're part of the system.
As early as 1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat. They said in no unmistakable terms that the Negro people, because of their social status and their predominant working class composition, offered greater revolutionary possibilities than any other cross-section of the population.
How do we get out of this mess?
Revolution, nothing less.
Revolution,
nothing less.
Revolution,
nothing less.
Revolution,
nothing less.
Revolution,
nothing less.
The communists call not only for extensive chaos within the cities. The plan is for raging fires from one city to the next. The average American, they say, soft and decadent, when he sees billows of black smoke rising from one horizon to the other, when at night the only light he has to see by is the flickering red from flames leaping into the sky, he'll become paralyzed with fear and panic and do nothing to interfere with the guerrilla bands as they strike at the community's power centers. To justify violence, they have to be able to claim that they're liberating people. And if people are to be liberated, then it's necessary to go through the motions, at least, of pretending that they have a right to form a nation of their own. The Communist Party called for their liberation, to break away from the United States and to set up their own nation within our borders.
Activists now control a barricaded area.
It's been called an autonomous zone.
They want it to be free of capitalism, state authority, and police.
To take the United States, all of the United States, it'll be necessary, they say, to involve white people as well as black, and in general, to escalate the revolution in America from race war to class war.
Feed the rich and feed the poor. This is class war.
Now, when they talk about pressure from above, they mean using their people and their influence within the very government marked for takeover to bring forward official recommendations for legislation. The recommendations, of course, are offered supposedly as solutions to national problems, but when passed into law, their only real effect is to vastly increase the power of government and to move the country that much closer toward the ultimate goal. The pressure from below, then, involves using their influence over the various mass membership organizations of the country to create the appearance of great popular support for these recommendations. Of course, the members of those organizations must never suspect that they're being used to promote the communist program. Now, the silent majority, the average person, is caught right in the middle. He looks above and sees highly respected spokesmen for government calling for socialist legislation. He looks below and sees mobs of demonstrators shouting for the same thing. He says to himself, has everyone gone crazy, or is it me? Now, he's still in the majority, of course, but he doesn't know it. He thinks he's helplessly outnumbered, and he bows to what he thinks is the democratic will of the majority. We mustn't kid ourselves into thinking that the communists have placed their agitators only into the black communities. They're working both sides of the street. They want hatred, violence, and bloodshed between the races, and they don't care how they get it or whom they use, even children if necessary.
My young comrades. Hi. This is my way of figuring out if you've been tainted by the patriarchy.
Patriarchy? Oh! This looks creepy.
It looks creepy. Why?
There's just like this thing about white people that just makes me be like...
And that's wrong.
Education authorities in the United States are asking the government to use anti-terror laws and involve the FBI against parents who protest against the way their children are being taught.
Why would you disrupt the nuclear family?
Because the real objective is to remove the family as a possible alternate source of guidance and support. All totalitarian regimes strive to destroy the close-knit family in order to remove any loyalties that might be higher than to the state itself.
While the Communist Party of China is undoubtedly America's greatest foreign adversary, it's crucial to recognize that the most urgent threat to the future of the United States resides within its own borders.
We're so used to thinking in terms of the old-fashioned concepts of warfare, we fail to realize that the favorite weapons of communist conquest are instead propaganda. The tactics of internal subversion.
I thought that America was racist. I thought it was patriarchal. I thought our capitalist society was just a means of exploiting people. And I thought all these things because that is what I was told.
The preaching of hatred to incite civil disorder.
I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
A California man is facing federal charges for the attempted murder of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
Treason, blackmail, the smear.
This is the first time Assange is being questioned over the rape allegations.
The LA Times ran an article calling Larry Elder a black white supremacist.
All committed by soldiers who wear no uniform and who claim to be loyal citizens of the target country marked for conquest from within. World War III that rages around us right now is a political war, an economic war, a psychological war, a spiritual war. As a matter of fact, the bomb, as a psychological weapon, is being dropped on the American people every single day.
You probably assume you're safe. That could be a deadly mistake.
Bracing for food shortages.
And labor shortages.
Shipping delays.
Supply chain disruption.
A new coronavirus variant.
The worst virus variant.
Ultra transmissible.
It can kill you.
It can kill you.
A surge in crime.
A surge in crime. Acts of terrorism.
Domestic terrorism.
White terrorists.
White supremacy.
Mass shootings. And nuclear conflict.
World War III.
World War III.
Vladimir
Putin.
Russia.
Environmental doom. Fire, storms, and deadly floods.
I don't want you to be hopeful.
Science tells us we have 9 years.
This storm will kill you.
I want you to panic.
It is promoting fear. It will kill your children.
Feelings of fear.
It will kill your pets.
The world is a very terrifying place.
Unless you get lucky.
I want you to feel the fear I feel every day.
By creating the illusion that says everything is fearful, the more we can manipulate the population.
We were groomed for decades
to be fearful, whether it was drop and cover.
We must be ready all the time if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover.
People look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis, this was the moment that we agreed to be surveyed all the time.
They believe they need to reshape society to be able to deal with the challenges society faces. And they believe so fanatically in that ideology that they think it's justified to manipulate and cheat and to use all kinds of narratives to convince people to go along with that ideology.
We're going to go visit Mom. I'm going to bring the home family to see Mom. No.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail.
You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer.
It's going to be very hard for people to do a lot of normal life unless they can prove their vaccination status.
Such as, you're not going to work in this particular agency or institution. You're not going to be able to go to this college or this university. Once we start doing that, you will see more and more people willingly get vaccinated.
God did answer our prayers. He made the smartest men and women, the scientists, the doctors, the researchers. He made them come up with a vaccine. That is from God to us. And we must say, thank you, God. Thank you.
There was a time, and not too long ago, I think, when we could have pulled ourselves out of this without too great a sacrifice on the part of anyone. But we didn't. Instead, we slept. Everywhere I look, I see men and women who know that communists are making headway in this country. They know that something must be done and that someone must stand up to them. But they themselves do nothing. They remain silent because they're afraid that if they speak out, it'll be bad for business. They may lose a client. They may even lose their jobs. Or perhaps they're receiving a regular government check and already are too dependent upon some of the very people and programs they know they should oppose. We have now passed the point of painless solutions and parlor patriotism. Well, all right, so what do we do about it? What are the countermeasures that need to be taken? And where do we begin? Before we finally win this battle, and I should hasten to say that there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to win. I'm increasingly convinced of this. But before we finally do see victory, we must carry the truth to every man, woman, and child in America. I have no idea of what each of you is going to do in the critical days that lie ahead. It may be much, it may be little, it may be nothing at all. I don't know. Only you can answer that question. But ladies and gentlemen, whatever it is you decide to do for your country, do it soon. Do it now. Every minute that you delay further will add dearly to the price
of ultimate victory. That phrase after all these years is kind of a shocker because I didn't realize really at the time how accurate it was going to be. But we're in the middle of it now, and so the ultimate victory is still ahead of us.